So hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good
Good
evening
afternoon.
to some viewers from Europe, India, and some parts of Far East Asia. Welcome again to high quality curated programs to assist pharmaceutical and nutraceutical companies focusing at responsible nutrition to benefit from it. For those who are here for the first time, Nutrify today is world's largest network of 8,000 senior executives from pharmaceuticals and nutraceutical industry with interest in responsible nutrition. And this platform helps the industry by way of curated access to new product development, sourcing, scouting new products, global contract manufacturing, regulatory solutions, market access, and financial assistance through investment. For anyone who's interested to know more, can write to us at hello@nutrifytoday.com. And or else you can just simply WhatsApp us at the number which you can see on the top. We believe in shared wealth economy. Knowledge is wealth. We work extensively in identifying curated knowledge and bring it to you at no cost. Best in case example is bringing you today's topic, decoding folate folic acid puzzle. I'd like to invite Mr. Apurva, who is the country lead for South Asia, Gnosis by Lissafor. Apurva is going to moderate the session and manage Q&A sessions for you. Apurva, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Amitji. Hello, everyone, and warm welcome from Genosis Balizaf. My name is Apurva Chikani. I am country lead for South Asia. Firstly, thank you so much for making yourself available for today's web seminar. During the 1 hour session, we will take you through the benefit of Quaterfolic, which is the innovative folate from Genosis Balizaf. I'm very happy that we have the two eminent speakers, Silvia Pisoni and Professor Luca Tiano, who will take you all of us for the entire presentation of Quaterfolic. Just a few words about Silvia. Silvia is a global marketing. Market segment. She has master's degree in pharmaceutical science and departmental of biomedical science for health, Milano University. She works for more than 20 years in pharmaceutical company in various marketing positions. And she was the scientific director responsible for presentation on scientific matters to physicians individually or in groups. We are very fortunate to have our second speaker, Professor Luca Tiano. Professor Luca has earned PhD degree in biochemistry. Professor Luca is assistant professor in nutrigenomics at Polytechnic University of Marche, Italy. Professor Luca coordinates the laboratory of oxidative stress and aging. Professor Luca is proud author of 134 peer-reviewed articles, and since 1997, Professor Luca conducts research in nutrition and healthy aging. I'm very glad to have both the speakers on board. If you have any question, please feel free to write in the chat box. At the end of the presentation, I will bring all the questions up for the answers by the relevant speaker. And without taking much of your time, I will straight hand over the presentation to Sylvia. Sylvia, please.
You see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
We will start with a short overview of the folate market. And then we will go deeply into the different form of folate, the big question about polymorphism, and a short quaterfolic overview. Folate is a really important vitamin. It's called also vitamin B9. It's present naturally in a lot of food, added to other, and is available in dietary supplements. It's very important in a lot of activity. Professor Luca Tiano will give to you more detail, but it's very important to have in our body the right intake of folate during the different stage of our life. It's really a trendy vitamin for a different kind of application. It's often focused on women. The main well-known activity of folate is in pregnancy, and women health supplement is a big market. We talk about 7 billion in 2023 with an increase of around 4 or 5%. And the basic needs of women are really related to vitamin. So Quaterfolic, these are examples of Quaterfolic finished product in pregnancy worldwide, in infertility, but not only. It's important for all the risk and cardiovascular risk related to postmenopausal women, but also cardiovascular protection, and there are some finished products, especially in North American market, for sexual health. Why folate market is very important? Because there is a huge increase of demand of dietary supplements with folate. The market is growing fast, 10% year by year, but the most important thing is that the new market of reduced folate is changing the old market of folic acid. So if we consider the growth of reduced folate, we're talking about 52 million with a growth of 15%. Folic acid is growing less faster, but there is a big quantity of folic acid still used in the world. So what we are looking for and what we look right now is that in North America, in Europe, there is a big switch between folic acid, so no active folate, into the active form. So Quaterfolic is the real opportunity to offer an innovative solution to answer our this market need. Why the market trend for a real need? So we are not talking only a market, but we are talking also a real need in the population. First of all, because not all the people have the right level of folate, just using folic acid. First of all, because folic acid is not active as it must be activated by the body. Some people, not the 100% of people, is able to transform folic acid into the active form, and so the importance of methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase polymorphism, so the inability of population to transform folic acid in active one, is right now very studied and very common. And for women, the polymorphism can cause a really important health issue. Just to finish, some internet trend. Folate is one of the most researched words on Google. You have an increase of the most search keyword as folate, folate deficiency, folate versus folic acid. The people is looking for the right solution, and more or less 60,000 people every month looking for folate solution. Quaterfolic awareness is very, very big because at the end is one of the most well-known active folate in the market. Quaterfolic is so well known that, for example, in Amazon, Quaterfolic is used as SEO to indicate the active folate, and it's strange that a big company like Amazon define active folate as Quaterfolic, and also in all the social media, a lot of companies use Quaterfolic to identify the best form of folate that are available into the market. After this marketing aspect, I will leave the floor, the stage to Professor Tiano, that will be more scientific and will explain you all the science background, the different form of folate.
So thank you, Silvia, for the introduction good afternoon, everyone. As it was introduced, I'm a professor in biochemistry at the Polytechnic University of Marche in Italy. My research interest is in nutrition and health, as well as aspects in nutrigenetic and nutrigenomics. So all aspects very close to today's topics that are folates. So folate, together with other B-complex vitamin, are essential for the maintenance of cellular function and health. And in particular, folate play a key role in the biosynthesis of vital elements such as DNA, lipids, protein, neurotransmitters, and we'll get back to functionality and biological effects shortly. What is important is that the alteration in this pathway leads to severe cellular impairment and constitute a risk factor for the development of multiple life-threatening diseases. So the active form of folate in our body is methyl tetrahydrofolate. This is the final step of transformation of dietary folate. Here we start to introduce an important concept. Dietary folate are essential nutrients, but they need to be transformed by enzymatic cellular systems in order to be activated. What are the nutritional sources of folate? And are they always sufficient? And what are the limitations associated with folates taken from the food? Folate are present in different vegetable sources. Here are some examples, such as green leafy vegetables, broccoli, and other brassicaceae, fruits, such as avocado, papaya, oranges, legumes, and nuts. And I'm sure in India you have plenty of these items in your diet. However, there are limitations even associated with intake of folates with vegetables associated to variability in the content of the vegetable, may depend on the cultivar, on the season, but more importantly, storage and cooking may decrease the folate content up to 70 or even 95%. So we move to the next one, please. So for this reason, dietary intake on average is generally referred as inadequate for organism requirement. The situation can be further worsened in condition of increased requirement, which is either for natural causes such as during pregnancy or other critical biosynthetic life phases, or as a consequence of drug interactions such as aminopterin, methotrexate, and other drugs that in general act as folate antagonists and produce folate deficiency. Moreover, besides limited dietary deficiency, this can be further worsened when there are issues with our ability to absorb active folate. This may depend, as we will see, on specific genetic variants, which are relatively frequent in the healthy population. In relation to the concept of folate activation in dietary form, it is important to pay attention to the difference between natural folates, the one present in dietary sources that we have discussed so far, and folic acid, which is a synthetic compound that was first synthesized in 1945, which is stable, therefore largely used in supplements and fortified food. Nonetheless, as we will discuss, not all the subjects are able to benefit at the same level from this integration because folic acid needs to be activated in order to be used by the organism. And not all the subjects are equipped with the optimal set of tools to allow a complete activation of the molecule. Next, please. In fact, even dietary folates have to proceed some metabolization and activation steps, even though less than with a synthetic folic acid, in order to be transformed to biological active form of folate in our body, which is the methyl tetrahydrofolate. As we can see in this diagram, the methyl tetrahydrofolate is the main folate form in the mother and also in the cord blood of newborns, ranging from 80 to 90% of the total folate content. And this gestation example, which is in a critical life stage when folate are essential for the development of the fetus, shows that the concentration of 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate is it doubled in the cord serum compared to mother serum, highlighting the extremely high bioavailability of this form. Next, please. Next slide. So in summary, methyl tetrahydrofolate, so the active molecule that is in the quaterfolic, is the bioactive form of folate readily available for transport and use in human body, meaning that it can be directly used, while dietary folates, mainly present as dihydrofolate, or even more for synthetic folic acid, they need to be converted and activated. A key activator enzyme in this process is methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase that you will see here in the slide as the last step, catalyzing this last activation step. Next, please. So methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase among humans within human variability does not come in a single form, but there are different possible and frequent actually variants with different degrees of activities that are normally referred as polymorphism. So what does actually mean a polymorphism? A polymorphism is a variant in the DNA sequence that characterizes each single individual. It is respected, generally speaking, to what extent the DNA varies in humans, how frequent are these variants. On one hand, we might think that DNA is very conserved if we think that 99% of our DNA sequences are identical, and even identical to those of higher primates like chimpanzees, monkeys. On the other hand, even subtle variation may have macroscopic effect. If we think that just an extra 0.5% variation differentiate human DNA from close primates. So this DNA, the building blocks of DNA are the nucleotides, and considering this percentage of variation, approximately 50 million nucleotides differentiate each single individual. Nucleotides come in 4 types, and their sequence constitutes the genetic code. Just like musical notes compose a melody, in our DNA is written our personal melody of life that is pretty similar for each one of us, with the exception of scattered single notes, as we say 0.5% of all notes that represent the variance. This variation may sound like personal glimpse of interpretation and actually sound even better than original script, but more frequently, they might be clearly out of tune, making our life melody not so good at times. Next one, please. So getting back to today's topic, okay, we say that folate do not come in our diet ready to use, but they need to be processed and activated by the organism. The gene encoding for methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase, so that is responsible for the metabolization and activation, might be present in 2 common variants, the 677 CT and 1298 AC, where the denomination indicates the position and the substitution of the nucleotide on the gene. So different combination of these 2 variants results in the expression of low functionality enzymes with activities, as we can see in the slide, as low as 25% compared to the wild type form. So these variants are very frequent, meaning that less than half of the people have a standard, fully functioning version of the gene, while about 60% of the people have at least 1 copy of the low functioning variant. So going back to our musical example, the carriers of these life melodies will have some notes representative for methyl tetrahydrofolate that are slightly out of tune. Next one, please. More specifically, alteration on 1 nucleotide in these 2 common variants results in the alteration of the codon triplet and leads to an amino acidic substitution in the protein. The presence of an altered amino acid results in a still functional but less active protein. In fact, a single copy of the gene is altered, so we have a heterozygous CT variant, and its activity is decreased by 30%, while in homozygosity, when we have the TT variant, the activity can be decreased even to 70%. Combining the different possibilities, we could have up to 9 patterns of expression with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, gestational complication, or neurological issues. These variants were studied in the US population and highlighted an higher proportions among Hispanic and Caucasian, but as we can see in the next 2 slides, next one, please. Further studies were conducted in different cohorts across the world, highlighting a significant prevalence in many other ethnic groups, in particular in Italy, China, and Korea. But as we can see in the next slide, also in India, the frequency of this variant is quite high, in particular in the northern part of India, of the country, with percentages ranging from 10–20% of the population of subjects with low activity. So the use of methyl tetrahydrofolate present in Quaterfolic avoid any limitation associated with less active gene variants of enzyme required for folate activation, not only methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase, but also the hydrofolate reductase, which is an enzyme which is located upstream in the conversion pathway and is responsible for the transformation of folic acid, which is the most common synthetic form for integration of folate present in supplements and fortified food. Moreover, the overdosage of folic acid or suboptimal transformation may actually lead to the accumulation of unmetabolized folic acid that has been shown to be associated with relevant health concerns. So the use of methyl folate completely bypass also these issues regarding of the genetic background. So Quaterfolic is structurally analogous to the reduced and active form of folate and does not need any processing. So in conclusion, folate deficiency is one of the most common vitamin deficiencies, and simply eating folate-rich food may not provide the recommended daily dosage for several reasons, including altered absorption, disease state, interference with drugs, and in between these well-known factors, deficiency associated to specific genetic background represent a growing area of interest in research, which is attracting a lot of interest in the researcher community for its relevant epidemiological size and broad negative consequence. In fact, we mentioned that folate together with vitamin B are important in 1-carbon metabolism in the biosynthetic process. So they are essential methyl donors for the biosynthetic process in the bodies, and deficit in these biosynthetic pathways may provide important consequences, as has been shown by large set of literature highlighting that subjects with the mutation may have complication in different clinical condition, and this list is constantly updated. Finally, let me provide you some more information on specific advantages of the Quaterfolic formula. And Quaterfolic is the glucosamine salt of the 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, and as such represents the last generation of folate and embeds several innovative advantages over traditional folic acid supplementation. As we mentioned, it's a natural product, it's bioidentical to the essential form in which folates occur in the human body, but in this form, it does not need further processing and is already active and ready available, and is proven to get across the blood-brain barrier. So next one, please. Moreover, in the form of the glucosamine salt, its solubility is greatly increased, being 100 times greater and consequently with an enhanced bioavailability. As it is shown in this graph that shows an acute bioavailability test measuring plasma levels for 8 hours, and we can see that the maximum concentration of the glucosamine salt in green is remarkably higher than folic acid, as well as methyl tetrahydrofolate as a calcium salt. Next one, please. Foliates. Next one.
What
Silvia?
happened?
Can you move to the next slide?
I move to the next slide.
Okay, perfect. So foliates, okay, broad spectrum of activities is involved in very basic and essential biosynthetic processes. And we see some aspect. Pregnancy, of course, is a critical, is a central role, is a major application area. We mentioned that folates are critical for biosynthesis of cellular components through the one-carbon metabolism. DNA synthesis, of course, is required from the first phases of fetal development to ensure chromosome stability, proper gene expression, and impairment of one-carbon metabolism promotes hyperhomocysteinemia, which is a risk factor also for embryo loss. Indeed, the deficiency of folate is known to be causally related to neural tube defects and other fetus developmental issues. But even before pregnancy, folate levels are directly associated with the fertility rate, both in men and in women. And rising the levels is important, especially in subjects with low activity of methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase with a variant with a polymorphism has been shown to be associated also with fertility issues. In men, low level of folate, in fact, are associated with poor sperm count, spermatic DNA instability, and this can affect epigenetic factors also associated with oocyte.
Luca?
So, yeah, that's right. So Quaterfolic has been tested in a clinical trial that was involving 33 couples with at least one partner with the polymorphism of methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase and with an history of infertility. So premature fetal loss and miscarriages. So these couples had previously used high doses of folic acid, up to 5 milligrams per day, but without any success. But when the couples were given Quaterfolic 800 micrograms per day, the pregnancy rate increased to 87%. So either spontaneous or maximizing the effect of in vitro fertilization. We can move to the next one. And we are, yes. So another important area of intervention that is worth mentioning is the cardiovascular health in relation to the involvement of folates in recycling homocysteine, which is a byproduct of methionine metabolism that may have negative impact on health when it is present at high level, hyperhomocysteinemia. So in particular, and please next one, plasma levels should be, Sylvia, please, the next one. Plasma levels of homocysteine should be less than 10 micromoles per liter. And when hyperhomocysteinemic subjects were given either 5 milligrams of folic acid or 400 micrograms of methyl tetrahydrofolate, both in association with other B complex vitamin. This led to a significant reduction of homocysteine plasma levels that were more pronounced in subjects on Quaterfolic, where 56% of the recorded population measure values were below actually the safety level of homocysteine. Next one, please. And last but not least, can I have the next slide?
It's the next slide. I did it. You see it?
Silvia?
Yeah. You see the slide?
Can I have the next slide?
I have the next slide. The slide is moving or not for the other?
We can
Yeah,
see
it's the next slide.
cardiovascular.
Solo tu non la vedi, Luca. So I can go ahead with this. This is just a clinical study that was done in China. And it's a very huge and big clinical study. We are talking about more than 20,000 adults without a history of stroke and myocardial infection. What they did, they make supplementation with folic acid, and they discovered that the use of folic acid decreased the risk of cardiovascular issue. The most important thing for this clinical study is that when they are going to analyze the 25% of people with the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase polymorphism, they discover that with the use of folic acid, there is no protection. So at the end, for this kind of people, the people that have polymorphism, there is the inability to use folic acid, and they have just to use reduced folate. So Luca, I just described this last slide, if you want to add something on it. You are on mute.
No, I guess you provided all the right information. That is a very large study, and it was very important that only the subjects without the low activity polymorphism actually were able to respond to the treatment.
If I can add one information, in China, the use of reduced folate wasn't allowed. After this clinical study, they allowed the use of reduced folate because they understand that the normal folic acid cannot protect the entire population. And so they add and they authorize in nutritional supplement the use of reduced folate. And right now, they are also authorizing the speed procedure with the orange to use reduced folate instead of folic acid because the incidence of polymorphism for Chinese people is higher than 25%. So a quarter of the population is not actively protected with the normal folic acid. We can go ahead, and we are just giving some conclusion. The most important things, Quaterfolic is a patented product. The patent is related to the composition, the use, the application, and also the specific salt that has strong advantages compared with calcium salt. The compliance is allowed worldwide, so it's approved, it's GRAS, is approved in US, it's a novel food in Europe, it's approved in Canada, Australia, Brazil, China right now, and its product is produced in manufacturing operation FDA inspected with GMP facility. So we produce Quaterfolic in a pharma manufacturing site. The trademark is property of Gnosis by Les Affres worldwide, and it's halal and kosher authorized. We have a strong brand support with the Quaterfolic website and the social. So this is the last slide. If you want to see the website and have all the information, you have just to make a picture on this QR code, and you will be directly on the page of the website with the subscription page of the newsletter. And we are always update on Instagram, Facebook, and all the social with our trendy hashtag Quaterfolic. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And thank you so much, Professor Luca. It was really enriching the information about the Quaterfolic. Now we have various questions. So I will take all the questions one after one. To start with, most of the question, there is a good number of questions that has been asked to understand the difference between the traditional calcium salt of folate vis-a-vis to Quaterfolic, and how it is the benefited in terms of the consumer related.
So who want to answer? I can answer if you want, related to the calcium salt. Okay, the most important thing is also for the novel food authorization, the solubility of Quaterfolic is much higher than the solubility of calcium salt. And also we compare we have two publications about the bioavailability that is also linked to the solubility that is 20% higher than the calcium salt. So this is one of the big advantage of Quaterfolic, and this is why we have this great success with the product. So increase solubility, increase bioavailability, a different kind of salt that is not a crystal but is an amorphous state that increase the ability of the body to use faster the active ingredient.
Thank you, Sylvia. We have another question, which is to understand the RDA of Quaterfolic. So I'll answer this question. So the RDA of Quaterfolic or the folate in general is been recommended by the ICMR, and ICMR has given the guideline based on the category of the consumer. So the pregnancy is one of the category wherein the 500 microgram of active folate has been recommended by ICMR, and all other application for adults, the recommended upper limit is the 200 microgram for active folate. For the kids around 6 to 8 years, up to 8 years, the recommendation is 125 microgram. So the active folate guideline has been given according to this. Yeah. Another question that is, or maybe one of the feedback that we have received, which is very interesting, from one of the participants, which says, and I'm exactly quoting the same: I have the variant of a gene which I found of my genome analysis, and I now take MTHFR form of folate and feel overall much better. So thank you so much for sharing your feedback, and I'm really glad that you're getting good results because of your bypassing the entire mechanism of folic acid, and you're getting good results from the folate. Another question that is coming up: is there any influence of Quaterfolic on vitamin B12?
Luca?
Yeah, of course, you need the whole set of vitamin B complexes in order to proceed with the one carbon metabolism. It's not simply the folate relevant, but this is a critical step. So I would say not the inhibitory effects for sure, but is an important element in the overall set of essential cofactors carry out these critical biochemical steps.
And if I can add one thing related to B12, is that folic acid is able to mask the B12 deficiency due to its mechanism of action, and it doesn't happen with the use of Quaterfolic, so with the use of reduced folate. And this is already related to, that the B12 deficiency are often linked with neurological aspects. The use of folic acid can mask these neurological effects, so you don't see the deficiency of B12 due to the fact that there is a more active effect, and the biomechanism aspect is not easy to explain, but we can provide to you all the information. the active folate, so quaterfolic, is not able to mask the B12 deficiency. So this is very important because it's a problem of the use of folic acid.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Yeah, there
another
are.
question that is coming up.
I see this
Another
question
question
about
that is come up to
bioavailability.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you can highlight the benefit of bioavailability.
Yeah, we have comparison also with folic acid for sure. The big difference with folic acid is that folic acid is really less soluble than quaterfolic. So we have comparison in solubility. The data are published, so I can share to Apurva the publication, and you can have this information. Both are published. The one of comparison with calcium salt and the one of comparison with folic acid.
Thank you, Sylvia. Another question that has been asked, can quaterfolic be used during lactation?
Yes, it's one of the indication with no problem. It's approved from a graph from EFSA, and it's typical. One of the use of active folate right now is starting to use, but I think that all of you know it, that the main indication is start to use active folate before planning a pregnancy, not only at the beginning. So we have some project to add reduced folate, for example, to the pills, because you know that often when women stop to use anticonceptional pills, it's because they are starting to plan for a pregnancy, and it's important to reach the right amount of folate, active folate before pregnancy and after for lactation, because it can restore the high use of folate that the women had during the pregnancy. So absolutely, yes, there are a lot of products after.
Thank you, Sylvia. There are good number of questions has been asked to understand the unmetabolized folic acid concept, and what are the contraindication and why unmetabolized folic acid is not good. So if you can, there are multiple questions on the ask for UMFA.
Oh, you want that I answer, or you, Luca, what you prefer?
Regarding I missed the question. Is
it's related to unmetabolized folic acid.
Ah, right. Okay. No. Unmetabolized folic acid, of course, there is, in this case, as we say, it is the active form. So there are we know that with folic acid that there are problems of accumulation, and they can be related to several health effects. Even there were some indication also with malignancies, as I see it was one of the questions. Well, with methyl tetrahydrofolate, so we have a higher bioavailability, directed the active form, and there is no risk of overdosage or unmetabolization of because it's already metabolized, so to say. So there are clear indication of reduced risk, and I see also a question about the comparison of dosage being already active, as we have seen, for example, in one of the data that I presented. So 5 milligrams is compared to some like 400 micrograms of tetrahydrofolate. So in terms of comparable bioavailability.
Related to this topic, there is also a huge debate in US, because you know that in US the add of folic acid is mandatory in flour, and the problem is that there is a big incidence of polymorphism in Hispanic people, and in US there is a high percentage of Hispanic people, especially from Mexico. That is the country where the incidence of polymorphism can reach 30 to 35%. So it's more or less 1 person every 3 Mexicans have this polymorphism. And with the flour, the mandatory add of folic acid, is quite common in Hispanic people to have a high level of unmetabolized folic acid that are linked to higher risk of some kind of cancer and so on. So that in Europe didn't have folic acid on flour, and the indication from EFSA was to use reduced folate in case of polymorphism. So not increase the dose of folic acid, but use the active folate. So it's a strong indication from a lot of in Italy, for example, for not to avoid to overdose the folic acid, because if you are not able to activate it, at the end you will find it as an metabolized folic acid in blood.
Thank you, Sylvia. There are a couple of questions has been asked to understand the compatibility of quaterfolic with other bioactives like vitamin B12 and other vitamins. So probably I would like to answer this. I can answer this. Yes. Various of our customers across the world has used quaterfolic in combination with various other bioactives. For example, like vitamin B complex and other bioactive, and position for the different application. So during this study, we have seen quaterfolic is extremely stable, can be used with the different, but of course has to be studied with the in the stability studies. However, we see that quaterfolic is an extremely stable molecule and does not get degraded into extreme or stress condition. Okay, there are a couple of questions has been asked about to know more about the RDA. So probably as I'll repeat once again. So ICMR has given the recommendation for 500 microgram active folate for pregnancy and 200 microgram for any other application for adults. There are a couple of questions has been asked about duration of the treatment. Sylvia, you would like to answer on this duration of the treatment with quaterfolic?
Okay, the duration of the treatment is during pregnancy, in lactation, and for example, we have some treatment for normalizing level of homocysteine, and it could be around 6 months. But by the way, the point is that you can easily test the level of folate in blood, and often the treatment is also to reach the right level of folate in blood that is not folic acid. So there is not a real indication in terms of time of treatment. For sure, is mandatory during all the pregnancy. What is changing in the different country. In Europe right now, the recommendation is to start 2 months before pregnancy and go during all the pregnancy. For anemia, more or less, the treatment that must go ahead since we reach the normality. And that's it. For fertility, you have to do it 3 months before, trying to reach the right amount of active folate. It's common in Europe and in US. There are some products with folate that are used as a nutritional supplement treatment to reduce the level of homocysteine. So you will stop when you normalize your level of homocysteine. That is one of the most important cardiovascular alarm parameters to keep in control.
Thank you, Sylvia. There is one question has been asked. So in the women health segment, what are the different applications for quaterfolic that you see, and how is the global market is revolving around the quaterfolic and different benefits?
Oh, related to this topic, this is really interesting. I mean, because the main use worldwide is for pregnancy, lactation, fertility. And this is the main subject, because also these are really linked. So it's quite clear, and is mandatory, by the way, in a lot of countries, to make a folate integration during, before, and after pregnancy. Here, I don't know, I can speak about Italy, it's absolutely normal. And for the other, the big trend are related to homocysteine and cardiovascular protection, because it's quite clear that use a high level of folate means reduce high level of homocysteine, and this is very powerful because you see the result after 1 month, 2 months of treatment. Another big trend is linked with the mood, because as Luca explained, in one carbon metabolism, the right level of methionine, so the opportunity to do all the methylation process means increase the level of the neurotransmitter in the brain. And so there is, for example, in US, high dosage of quaterfolic are allowed to be used as medical food for depression resistant to the normal pharma treatment, in association, for sure, is not a substitution. But in general, one of the trend is also mood. And what we can say, mild cognitive impairment. So all the problems related to low level of neurotransmitter in the brain. It's important to highlight that folic acid is not able to pass the brain barrier. Instead, methylfolate is the form that is able to reach the brain. So that is another point, very important, another big advantage of quaterfolic and reduced folate in general.
Thank you, Sylvia. I think so. Most of the question, almost all the questions that has been asked, and we have answered all the questions. Okay, just last question that has just come up. Is there any concern for overdose of quaterfolic?
What?
Overdose of quaterfolic.
There are no indication of side effects. There's mainly association of problems are associated with unmetabolized products in the folic acid. So this it is safe, and there are no health concerns related to the use of quaterfolic. What is important, I've seen some question about the difference in there might be some confusion on the dosage, and the dosage is related mainly to two things. One aspect is that is radioactive, ready available, does not need to be transformed, so we can use less, but in particular also the glucosamine salt formulation, as we have shown, it provides a better bioavailability profile in with pharmacokinetic studies. So that's why the required dosage is lower, basically.
Thank you, Professor Luca. We'll take last question, and the question which says, is there any ongoing stability studies going on between quaterfolic and folic acid and L-methylfolate calcium salt?
Yes, so for related to stability in our product specification condition, there are no problem, and in finished product also. We are doing a deeper study to evaluate bioavailability, because this is a strong, because what is quite clear is that the crystal form, especially for calcium salt, will decrease the solubility and then the bioavailability, and so for us it's very important to understand if this strong salt that is different from the glucosamine one could impact the bioavailability more than we think. And so at the end we hope to have this result as soon as we are doing a comparison between all the different kinds of calcium salt to reinforce the concept of the higher bioavailability of quaterfolic if compared with the normal calcium salt. That is a key aspect for the efficacy.
Thank you. I think so. We have answered all the questions, and I have noted all the questions. So I will give you the relevant detail wherever the people has asked about the supporting clinical data and more information. So I'll be more than happy to give you all the details. So Sylvia, you wanted to give the closing remark?
Excuse me?
would you like to close the session with your
No,
remarks?
okay. I would like to to thanks everybody, first of all, for your participation. We reach more than 100 participants. That is very, very good. I would like to thank Luca because it's a great support, and he's also in charge sometimes on some evaluation of activity of reduced folate in a lot of health benefit, and this is very important because we really think that reduced folate has it's a great opportunity for the health because it's the active form. And I would like to thank Nutrify today for the support. He's a great partner, so I have to thank. And last but not least, Apurva, because he's my favorite sales manager worldwide, because she's able to do a great work. And I know that India is a big country, but she's really trying to do her best to follow.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for making yourself available and for this round of discussion. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Visit the website.